Welcome to my channel, The World Coin. Today videos is one you won't to miss. We're diving into the world of coins. I have 4 videos of 5 cent, so let's get it. The 1973 United States 5 cent coin, commonly referred to as the nickel, represents one of the most enduring and iconic denominations in American numismatics, with a rich historical and cultural backdrop that reflects both the evolution of coinage in the United States and the broader story of the nation's development. Minted during the administration of President Richard Nixon, a period marked by political unrest, the end of the Vietnam War, and significant economic fluctuations including the looming energy crisis and the collapse of the Bretton Woods system, the 1973 nickel holds a small yet meaningful place in the fabric of U.S. history. Struck primarily at the Philadelphia and Denver mints, represented by either no mint mark for Philadelphia or a D for Denver, these coins were produced in the hundreds of millions to serve a burgeoning American economy with a growing population and expanding consumer base. The San Francisco Mint also produced proof versions of the 1973 nickel, intended solely for collectors and featuring a highly polished, mirror-like surface with frosted details achieved through a specialized minting process. These proof coins bear the S mint mark and are typically found in proof sets sold directly by the U.S. Mint. The 1973 nickel features the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, 3rd President of the United States and principal author of the Declaration of Independence, on its obverse side. A design introduced in 1938 by sculptor Felix Schlag, who won a national design competition to replace the previous Buffalo nickel. Schlag's original design underwent minor modifications over the years, but the core image of Jefferson, facing left with a serene and thoughtful expression, remained largely unchanged through 2003, before it was briefly replaced during the Westward Journey series beginning in 2004. Surrounding Jefferson's profile are the inscriptions, "In God We Trust" to the left, "Liberty" to the right, followed by the year 1973. The reverse of the coin depicts Jefferson's home, Monticello, rendered with neoclassical precision, complete with the inscriptions, "E pluribus unum" across the top, Monticello beneath the depiction, and United States of America, and 5 cents encircling the bottom. Elements that emphasize the coin's national identity and Jefferson's role in American heritage. The coin's diameter measures 21.21 millimeters, 0.835 inches, and it weighs exactly 5 grams, composed of a cupronickel alloy consisting of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core, a combination that gives the nickel its signature, silver-gray appearance and strong resistance to corrosion. This composition has remained consistent since the conclusion of World War II, though earlier nickels from the wartime years, 1942-1945, contained silver to conserve nickel for the war effort. The edge of the coin is plain, lacking reading or ornamentation, which differentiates it from denominations like the dime or quarter. While the 1973 nickel is extremely common in circulation and not particularly valuable in average condition, due to the sheer volume produced, exceeding 384 million from Philadelphia and over 384 million from Denver, uncirculated examples, particularly those with full steps, a grading term indicating sharply struck details on the steps of Monticello, are highly sought after by collectors and can fetch higher prices depending on condition, luster, and rarity of the strike. Full steps nickels from 1973 are rare due to the production techniques of the time, and even minor variations in die condition, such as doubled dies or over-polished dies, can create numismatic interest. These coins, while often overlooked by casual collectors, offer intriguing avenues for specialized numismatists focused on Jefferson nickels or error coins. Furthermore, the nickel plays a unique role in American commerce and daily life, serving as a transitional denomination that facilitates small transactions while also holding historical continuity as one of the few U.S. coins to remain relatively unchanged in size, shape, and composition over decades. From a socio-political perspective, the circulation of the 1973 nickel through millions of hands reflects a broader narrative of American identity, economic stability, and civic trust. Values, symbolized by Jefferson's presence on the coin. As inflation gradually diminished the purchasing power of small denominations throughout the late 20th and early 21st centuries, the nickel has increasingly become less useful in practical exchange. but its continued production underscores its symbolic and institutional role within the U.S. monetary system. Additionally, coins like the 1973 nickel are often used in educational settings to introduce students to basic economic principles, history, and metallurgy, making them tools of learning as well as instruments of trade. In the realm of hobbyist interest, 1973 nickels may appear in coin roll hunts, starter collections, or bulk lots sold at coin shows, and while most carry only face value, pristine examples with sharp strikes and minimal wear can be certified by third-party grading services such as PCGS or NGC and command modest premiums, especially in grades MS65 and higher. These coins may also bear sentimental value to individuals born in 1973 or collectors pursuing complete date and mint mark sets of Jefferson nickels. Over time, the cumulative cultural, artistic, and economic aspects of coins like the 1973 5-cent piece contribute to the broader field of numismatics, an interdisciplinary pursuit combining elements of art, economics, politics, and history. Thus, while small in size and often unnoticed in daily transactions, the 1973 United States nickel remains a meaningful artifact of its time, offering rich insight into mid-20th century America through its design, production, and enduring legacy. The United States 5-cent coin, more commonly referred to as the nickel, holds a prominent place in American coinage, and the 1987 edition is no exception. Introduced originally in 1866, the nickel has evolved over the decades, but its basic characteristics have remained relatively stable since 1938. The 1987 nickel features the iconic Jefferson nickel design, first introduced in 1938, replacing the earlier Buffalo nickel, designed by German-American sculptor Felix Schlag. This coin commemorates Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States and the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. On the obverse, front, of the coin is a left-facing, profile portrait of Jefferson, modeled after a bust by sculptor Jean-Antoine Houdon. The inscriptions around the image include the word Liberty, the year 1987, and the motto, In God We Trust. A small mint mark appears to the right of the date, denoting the U.S. Mint facility where the coin was struck. Either a P for Philadelphia, a D for Denver, or an S for San Francisco. Although no proof nickels were made at San Francisco in 1987, so the S mint mark is absent that year. The reverse, back, of the coin showcases Monticello, Jefferson's home in Virginia, which he designed and built over several decades. The depiction is front-facing and emphasizes the neoclassical architecture of the estate. Above Monticello are the words E pluribus unum, a Latin phrase meaning out of many one, and below are the inscriptions Monticello, 5 cents, and United States of America. The entire design is enclosed within a clean, symmetrical rim. The 1987 Jefferson nickel is composed of a copper-nickel alloy, with an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel, bonded to a pure copper core. It has a diameter of 21.21 mm, a thickness of 1.95 mm, and a weight of 5.0 grams. The edge of the coin is plain, without any reeds. The coin was struck in large numbers for circulation. The Philadelphia Mint produced 650,991,000 coins, and the Denver Mint struck 484,384,000 coins in 1987, contributing to a total mintage exceeding 1.14 billion pieces. As such, the 1987 nickel is not rare, and circulated examples are still commonly found in pocket change today. While the 1987 nickel is usually of low value in circulated condition, typically worth just its face value, uncirculated, mint state examples, especially those graded MS65 or higher, can be of modest interest to collectors. Coins with full steps, a designation given by grading services to nickels that display complete sharp steps on the front of Monticello, are particularly sought after, as they demonstrate a superior strike. However, the 1987 nickel is not considered a key date, and no major varieties or errors have been officially recognized for this year. Although minor die clashes, repunched mint marks, RPMs, or off-center strikes may appear and attract error coin collectors. Proof nickels were not issued for general circulation in 1987 because the U.S. Mint did not produce proof sets that year, a rare interruption that also occurred in 1965-1967. Therefore, collectors seeking 1987 nickels focus exclusively on circulation strikes or high-grade examples. The absence of proof sets in 1987 makes the official U.S. Mint souvenir sets, which include higher quality strikes from Philadelphia and Denver, somewhat more collectible for that year. Historically and culturally, the Jefferson nickel represents a continuity in American coinage that speaks to the enduring legacy of the nation's founding fathers and the stability of U.S. minting practices. By 1987, the Jefferson design had been in use for nearly 50 years, a span during which America underwent vast social, political, and economic changes, including the Cold War, the space race, and the rise of modern technology. Yet the image of Jefferson and Monticello remained consistent, a reflection of the Mint's conservative approach to coin design and the public's familiarity with this enduring symbol. It wasn't until 2004-2006, under the Westward Journey nickel series, that the Jefferson nickel received its first major redesign in over half a century. Therefore, the 1987 nickel sits at the tail end of the classic Jefferson design period, representing the final decades before modern redesigns and commemoratives entered the scene. Collectors and historians may find significance in this transitional era, as it marks the boundary between old and new traditions in American numismatics. From a broader perspective, the nickel's role in commerce has shifted since the 1980s. As inflation has diminished the purchasing power of 5 cents, nickels are increasingly seen as small change with limited practical use, but they remain essential components of vending machines, transit systems, and everyday transactions. In 1987, a nickel could still purchase small items like chewing gum, pencils, or bulk candy, and it played an everyday role in the lives of Americans. By contrast, in the 21st century, its utility has decreased significantly. Nonetheless, the 1987 nickel continues to circulate and find its way into change jars, collector albums, and educational kits, preserving a tangible link to American life in the late 20th century. To conclude, the 1987 United States 5-cent coin is a small yet enduring artifact of American history. While it may not possess rare numismatic features, it reflects nearly 50 years of Jefferson's legacy on U.S. coinage and illustrates the craftsmanship of mid-20th century American design. Its large mintage and ubiquity in circulation make it accessible to collectors of all levels, while its historical context offers insight into the nation's evolving identity, economy, and minting traditions. Whether found in an old jar, a coin, collection, or as change from a cash register, the 1987 nickel remains a quiet witness to American heritage and continues to serve as a symbol of continuity, legacy, and national. The 1983 United States 5-cent coin, more commonly known as the Jefferson nickel, is part of the long-standing series of 5-cent pieces that have been minted since 1938. This particular coin features the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States and principal author of the Declaration of Independence. The 1983 Jefferson nickel holds both historical and numismatic interest for collectors, not necessarily due to its rarity or extreme value, but because of its place within a broader economic and minting context of the early 1980s. At this time, the United States was emerging from the tail end of an inflationary period, and coinage saw various fluctuations in terms of production quality and collector interest. The obverse front of the 1983 nickel bears the left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson. This design, originally created by sculptor Felix Schlag in 1938, remained in use with only minor modifications until the early 2000s. Jefferson's portrait is accompanied by the inscriptions, "In God We Trust" on the left and "Liberty," followed by the year 1983 on the right, in a cursive script that is reminiscent of Jefferson's own handwriting. The mint mark, if present, appears just below the date. In 1983, 3 mints were responsible for producing Jefferson nickels: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D; and San Francisco, S. Notably, only proof versions were struck at the San Francisco Mint, and these coins were not intended for general circulation. On the reverse back of the coin, the iconic image of Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia estate, dominates the center. It is a neoclassical architectural landmark that Jefferson himself designed and built, and its depiction is faithful to its real-life structure. Above the dome of Monticello appears the Latin motto, "E pluribus unum," which translates as "out of many one," reflecting the unity of the diverse American states. Below Monticello are the inscriptions, Monticello, 5 cents, and United States of America. The design emphasizes Jefferson's dual legacy as both a statesman and a man of culture, architecture, and intellect. In terms of composition, the 1983 Jefferson nickel is made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, a composition that has remained unchanged for decades. The coin has a standard diameter of 21.2 millimeters and weighs 5.0 grams. The reeded edge, found on coins like the dime or quarter, is absent here. The nickel features a plain edge. This composition gives the coin a silvery appearance, although it contains no actual silver. The use of nickel and copper is practical for wear resistance and minting durability. From a mintage perspective, the 1983 nickel was produced in large quantities. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 561 million coins, while the Denver Mint contributed over 536 million. The San Francisco Mint, tasked with creating proof coins, produced just over 3.2 million of these high-quality pieces. As a result, the 1983 Jefferson nickel is not considered rare in circulated condition, though pristine examples or those with errors or unusual characteristics can fetch a higher price among collectors. Economically and historically, 1983 was a notable year in U.S. coinage for several reasons. Just 1 year earlier, in 1982, the U.S. Mint had transitioned from bronze to zinc-based Lincoln cents, reflecting an era of cost-cutting and material rebalancing. Though the composition of the nickel remained unchanged, the broader context of American numismatics in the early 1980s was one of economic caution and pragmatic production. Inflation in the late 1970s and early 1980s had driven up the cost of metal, prompting constant reassessments of coin compositions. However, the nickel retained its traditional form, in part due to the balance between its size, durability, and public familiarity. In the collector market, the 1983 nickel is relatively common in circulated condition and typically carries little premium over face value, unless in uncirculated, MS65 or higher, or proof condition. High-grade coins that exhibit strong strikes, full steps on Monticello, a key indicator of strike quality, and original luster are particularly valued. The full steps designation, typically 5 or 6 full steps visible at the base of Monticello, is a critical grading benchmark for Jefferson nickels, especially those minted before the mid-1990s, as earlier issues often suffered from weaker strikes. A 1983D or 1983P Jefferson nickel with full steps in MS66 or MS67 can be worth several dollars, sometimes even more, depending on demand and market fluctuations. Another dimension of collecting involves errors and varieties. While the 1983 Jefferson nickel is not especially known for widespread errors, collectors do report and seek out examples with notable die cracks, off-center strikes, double dies, and other anomalies. These varieties, while relatively scarce, are a subset of what makes numismatics intriguing. The hunt for unique or imperfect specimens produced in a minting process that is otherwise highly standardized. As with all coins, the presence of such errors must be verified by a qualified numismatist or third-party grading service, such as PCGS or NGC. Proof versions of the 1983 nickel, produced at the San Francisco Mint and bearing the S Mint mark, are notable for their mirror-like fields and frosted devices. These coins were struck with specially prepared dies and polished blanks to ensure high detail and aesthetic quality. While widely available in proof sets sold to collectors, they are not meant for circulation. A complete proof set from 1983 typically includes the penny, nickel, dime, quarter, and half dollar, and occasionally the Susan B. Anthony dollar, all in pristine condition and presented in protective packaging. In terms of broader cultural significance, the Jefferson nickel has had a long-standing presence in American life. By 1983, it had already been in circulation for 45 years, having replaced the Buffalo nickel in 1938. The choice of Jefferson and Monticello for the coin's design was deeply symbolic. A founding father, philosopher-president, and architect of American ideals, paired with the very house that embodied his Enlightenment-driven vision of the Republic. This symbolism has contributed to the coin's enduring legacy, even as designs for other denominations evolved more frequently. For those collecting Jefferson nickels, the 1983 issue is a relatively accessible starting point. It is commonly found in rolls, bags, and circulation, offering an affordable entry into the world of coin collecting. Collectors often aim to complete full date and mint sets, and while the 1983 nickel poses no unusual challenge in terms of availability, acquiring a flawless example, particularly one with full steps, can add an extra layer of difficulty and satisfaction. In summation, the 1983 Jefferson nickel represents a piece of American monetary history that is often overlooked in its everyday utility. Yet, beneath its surface lies a story of presidential legacy, minting technology, economic pressures, and collector tradition. From the enduring design by Felix Schlag to the subtle differences in strike quality between mint facilities, this coin encapsulates a moment in time, not just in 1983, but in the larger sweep of American numismatics. Whether held by a collector, passed through countless hands in commerce, or resting in a forgotten jar, the 1983 5-cent coin continues to echo the values and history of the United States. The 1979 United States 5-cent coin, widely recognized as the Jefferson nickel, is a fascinating piece of American numismatic history, encapsulating both historical depth and artistic detail. This coin belongs to a long-standing series that began in 1938, replacing the earlier Buffalo nickel, and it features the prominent image of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States and the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. Designed by artist Felix Schlag, the Jefferson nickel remained largely unchanged in design for over 6 decades, making it one of the most stable coin types in American history. The obverse, front, of the 1979 Jefferson nickel features a left-facing bust of Jefferson, sharply modeled with a high forehead, pulled-back hair in a queue, and a coat with a high collar, symbolizing 18th-century aristocratic fashion. The inscriptions on the obverse include the phrase, "In God We Trust," on the left, "Liberty," and the date, 1979, on the right, separated by a small star. Depending on the mint location, the coin may also bear a mint mark, D for the Denver Mint, S for the San Francisco Mint, proof coins, or no mark for the Philadelphia Mint, as Philadelphia did not use a mint mark on nickels until 1980. On the reverse, back of the coin, is a highly recognizable depiction of Monticello, Jefferson's historic Virginia estate, rendered in neoclassical architectural detail with a central dome, columns, and symmetrical windows. Above Monticello is the Latin motto "A pluribus unum," out of many one, while below the building lies the word Monticello in bold capital letters. Beneath this is the denomination spelled out as 5 cents, and at the very bottom the inscription, United States of America. Schlag's initials, FS, were not included on the coin until later revisions, so you will not find them on the 1979 version. The Jefferson nickel in 1979 was composed of a copper-nickel alloy, consisting of 75% copper and 25% nickel, with a diameter of 21.2 millimeters and a weight of 5 grams. The edge of the coin is smooth, without reading, and it has a thickness of approximately 1.95 millimeters. This alloy choice gives the coin a distinctive silver-gray metallic color and a high resistance to corrosion, which contributed to its long-term circulation durability. In 1979, the Jefferson nickel was struck in large quantities. Due to the growing demand for coinage across the United States, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 463 million coins, the Denver Mint over 325 million, and the San Francisco Mint produced around 3.1 million proof coins, which were not intended for general circulation, but instead made for collectors, characterized by their mirror-like finish and exceptional strike detail. These proof coins are typically housed in hard plastic cases as part of official U.S. Mint proof sets. While most circulated 1979 Jefferson nickels hold only face value due to their high mintage and common availability, proof coins, uncirculated examples, or those with minting errors, such as off-center strikes, double dies, or full steps on Monticello, which indicates a sharply struck reverse with all the steps on Monticello visible, can be worth more, sometimes ranging from a few dollars to much higher depending on grade and rarity. From a historical perspective, the Jefferson nickel represents not only an everyday medium of exchange, but also a symbol of American heritage and identity. Thomas Jefferson's inclusion on the coin is part of a broader trend of honoring founding fathers and national landmarks in American numismatics, reinforcing civic values through daily currency. The 1979 edition of this coin was minted during the Cold War era, a time when the United States was experiencing significant technological advancement, economic shifts, and political complexity. Though no major design changes occurred that year, the coin stood as a constant during a period of transformation. It was a time when Americans were dealing with inflation, energy crises, and international tensions, yet their coins bore the same familiar symbols, grounding citizens in a shared past. The 1979 nickel thus serves as a quiet witness to history, passing from hand to hand during gas shortages, carried in the pockets of those watching the Iran hostage crisis unfold, or clinking in vending machines of public schools. It touched everyday life in countless unseen ways. Collecting Jefferson nickels, especially those from the 1970s, has become a favored entry point for new numismatists, due to the coin's affordability, accessibility, and rich historical ties. Although the 1979 coin is not particularly rare, finding one in pristine mint state, MS65 or higher condition can be challenging, as nickels circulated heavily and often show wear on Jefferson's cheek, jawline, and the steps of Monticello. Coins with full steps, a grading designation that specifically refers to the clarity of Monticello's stairways, are considered especially valuable among collectors, as they indicate exceptional strike quality. For those interested in varieties, there are also proof versions with distinguishable characteristics like cameo contrast or deep cameo finishes, adding layers of depth to the collecting experience. Additionally, exploring mint errors from this year can be particularly rewarding. Examples include clipped planchets, die cracks, and off-center strikes, which turn an ordinary nickel into a curiosity worth examining under a magnifying glass. Ultimately, the 1979 Jefferson nickel is more than a simple coin. It is a miniature monument to a president whose ideals shaped the nation, and a product of an era marked by resilience and change. It embodies the blend of art, industry, and identity that defines American coinage. While the coin may seem commonplace, it tells a rich story of a nation built on liberty, a minting tradition rooted in precision and craftsmanship, and a shared economic experience that touches every citizen. Even today, 1979 nickels remain in circulation, quietly continuing their journey through commerce and time, unnoticed yet enduring. Whether clinking in a piggy bank, tossed in a coin jar, or cataloged in a collector's album, each one holds a piece of the American story, preserved in metal, design, and history. So like and subscribe this video.